Hello, loves. Hello, everybody. Welcome to
Hello.
know. Hi, this is my dear friend Luca Orlandi, a new friend, and I'm really looking forward to speaking with you today for episode 8 of, as I said, the Nova Holistic podcast. So, welcome, Luca.
Oh, thank you. Thank you, Diana, for having me
It's my
and
pleasure.
for having
We've
a
been trying
chat
to
with me.
manifest,
Yeah,
I know.
been a
Been trying to
while.
manifest this for what, 2, 3 weeks now.
Yeah,
And here we are finally having this
yes,
conversation, which is amazing.
we made it.
So let me introduce you a little bit to the audience.
Sure.
So I connected with Luca through my membership with the International Energy Healers Association that I am a member of, and Luca is one of the members as well, and also in part of the management committee. So Luca was doing some amazing present an amazing presentation through Healers Connect, called Healers Connect, which is like a networking event through the organization. And I saw some of the work that he was doing and invited him to be on the podcast. That's how it sort of started. Um, since we initially connected, we've I've asked Luca if he minds if we just have a more organic sort of conversation, just sort of go in with the flow and have a chat about some of the presenting issues that have been coming up and sort of coming in to my awareness and his awareness, and so we're gonna spend some time today just having a really uh, open in the flow conversation about things as they come up. But initially, let me read to you a little bit about Luca, and then we're going to ask him to tell us a little bit about him as well. So I have Luca's bio here, and I just want to read you, I think, the first couple of paragraphs, if you just bear with me. During many years in the luxury retail industry, working for the most prestigious international brands like Armani, Prada, Gucci, and Versace, Luca has also taken his personal journey to an inward level, having experienced firsthand the search for happiness in acquiring more goods, becoming prettier, wealthier, and trendier. He noticed that certain human needs were not acquirable on the shop floor, regardless of the level of income. Out of curiosity and personal interest, excuse me, he started to explore a holistic approach to life in 2007, just before moving to Australia from Italy. During his exploration, he obtained a diploma in energetic healing from Nature Care College in Sydney, where he also integrated studies with a professional certificate in EFT, which is Emotional Freedom Technique, a professional certificate in Meditation Facilitator, and he is an Aura Soma certified practitioner. This is what Luca says: everything is made of energy. This is the basic understanding that allows us to embrace reality as a whole. Being able to resonate with the natural flow of energy in our life allows us to live a life that fulfills our soul, guiding us towards our purpose. Luca, wise words.
Wow, this person is very wise.
I know. What
Sometimes
a
I'm like, did I say that? Anyway, I must have. I
what
must
a
have.
blessing to have that sort of wisdom to share, with
Oh,
us,
thank you.
with your peers and on the
Yeah,
planet. I think it's a really important time to be on the planet, to hold this wisdom and share it with the collective. So welcome. I want to try. I'm going to give you the floor now, the
yeah,
supposed floor. And I'm going to invite you to tell us maybe a little bit about your time in Italy, and who you are and how you
yes.
came
How did
to
I end?
that
How did I end
away.
up on this
How did you
podcast?
end up in that chair? Yeah.
How did I end? Okay. I'll try to make probably a long story a little bit shorter, just for
That'd be great.
easiness. Yes. So born and raised in Italy up to 2007. I lived in, 3 different cities in Italy, but pretty much your average normal dude there. Just before I decided to come to Australia, which is another long story, before I decided, a friend of mine, best friend, and we are still friends, she said, "Oh, you gotta come and see the Crystal Lady with me." I'm like, okay, what's a Crystal Lady? So, oh, she put the crystals on you and she does this. And yeah, look, I literally went there very, very skeptical. I was not exposed to this side of medicine, if you want to call it that way, or these practices until then. So I literally went there with the mind of this is all BS. Before doing that, I end up reading a book from Osho that my theater teacher suggested. And in the book, basically the concept is that there is something called the mind that rules the way we live. And that kind of got me intrigued. I'm like, oh, I thought I was one thing. But apparently there is this thing called the mind, which does make decisions for me. Okay. So I went to the Crystal Lady, and I didn't have any particular, amazing experience on that bed. However, just one thing kind of triggered my curiosity. And, I was lying there, not feeling a thing. And I'm saying, you know what? I'm going to imagine that I'm going to push energy out of my feet. And I want to see if this Crystal Lady can pick that up. Well, a matter of fact, 2 seconds later, I'm there, imagining this thing. She goes, "There's something wrong. There's something happening around your feet." And that was like, whoa. Okay. How did she find out? If she find out there is a way of reading these type of things, how do you read energy? And that kind of started to ignite my curiosity for it.
Wow.
That was simply out of, well, this happened to me. I want to know how it is possible. I didn't question if it was true or false. I assumed that it was true. I said, okay, if this is true, how it is possible?
I have a question for you, if you don't mind.
Yeah.
Why do you think that you didn't ask yourself if it was true or false, and instead you just assumed that it was true? What is it about you that didn't question that?
Well, now with what I know that when I hear or feel or experience something that my core essence know to be true, I don't need to question it.
There we
And I
go.
guess
Isn't that
that
amazing?
part happened there. I was not aware of it.
Mm-hmm.
Now I know because I've been working and studying and operating for
Sure.
the last almost 15 years.
Mm-hmm.
Now I know that when something struck you at the very core of your own being, you just know.
Mm-hmm. And here's, just for the purposes of the audience,
Yeah.
would you say, based on your own experience and your story, that that part of you that recognizes the truth is always inside of you, regardless of your level of awareness?
It's always been there and always
Always.
will be.
Mm-hmm.
I say to
Yep.
people sometimes, we don't really age, only the body
Mm-hmm.
does it. Because there's a
Mm-hmm.
part of you that is so permanent. Should we call it the soul, spirit, whichever you want to call it, that is so
Mm-hmm.
within you that is basically watching everything that is happening to you.
Mm-hmm.
And when something resonates at that level, then you know that part to be true. And that part of you is always there. It's not just there for me, not for you. It's there for everybody on the planet.
Mm-hmm.
It's just a
So you
matter
don't have
of,
to be, sorry, Luca, I just
oh,
wanted to confirm this because I think this happens. Human ego can sometimes get in the way of this. You don't have to be better or richer or more successful or skinnier or fatter or live in a certain place for this to be true, because that part of you is a void of all of those human limitations.
Yeah.
Yes.
I subscribe to what you just said. In my experience, at least, this is true.
Yeah.
And I can see how sometimes people are a little bit afraid of going down that path, but they all have that. If someone doesn't know anything about energy or whatever, holistic therapy, but as that instinctual level of, oh, I shouldn't go there, I don't like this person, that is the part of you that is talking to you with absolute truth. And that's the part of us that we need to learn how to listen to.
Okay. So let's go back to Luca, not
Yes.
questioning that this was true back in 2007.
Yeah.
Yep. And deciding that he wanted to find out more about this phenomenon that he experienced. Go ahead, please.
So yes, basically, back then I didn't know that there were school courses, workshop. I was not aware of what the industry it is nowadays, and so I basically started to go into crystal shops because the lady at the end of the session said, "Oh, you should wear this particular crystal," which I still remember was orange calcite, was a tumblestone.
Oh, yeah, right, okay.
You gotta wear that because it's gonna help you with calming your mind. And I'm like, okay, she's mentioning the mind like the book I read that I felt was kind of interesting. So, well, I'll give it a go. So I'm wearing this little crystal around my neck, in the little cage, not putting too much attention to it. And then one day, this crystal basically decided to come out of the cage. So I'm walking, I'm feeling the crystal dropping down my belly. I'm like, oh, I must have broken the necklace. No, the necklace was completely intact, but the crystal decided to come off. So Luca in 2008 says, how's that possible? So I wrote an email to the lady, said, well, this is happening. Why? And she goes, oh, the crystal has done its job. I'm like, wait a minute, backtrack here. What do you what do you mean a crystal does the job? And what does it mean that it's done its job? So it's leaving me, and all that kind of, prompt the journey that followed.
Wow.
And then, from there, still my best friend that took me to the crystal lady, moved to Australia as well. We are living together, and she enrolled in natural care college. And she comes back as hell. I've enrolled in this school, and they do a diploma in energy healing. And I was like, "Are you going to Hogwarts? What are you doing there?" For Harry Potter fans. I was envisioning this circle of witches and wizards, doing magic spells. Anyway, she started to talk to me about what she does there and how she does it. Anyway, long story short, 2 years later, I enrolled in natural care college into the energetic healing diploma. First, I went to the introduction of it because I'm like, what am I buying here? And then it was intriguing. It was interesting. People were nice. So I was like, you know what? I'm going to give it a go. And then from there on, it's pretty much has become my lifestyle.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's really amazing. So talk to us a little bit more about, so you mentioned crystal healing and energy work.
Yeah.
What kind of modalities, or how many modalities are you up to these days? What do you practice?
Good question. Because I do a level of work or healing work, let's call it this way, which kind of involves a little bit of different modalities. And not because I want to be different, but because as a person, I'm not a follower like ABC. It's something that I struggle with. I always have to put in my own creativity into things, my own, what I call my own magic in a way. So my way of practicing is you as a client come to me and we work around your energy field. We notice what the energy field is out of balance. And my job is to balance the energy field there and then. But then your job is to keep that balance outside of the room. So that's the contract that I have with my clients. And I'm very clear on that. because I always struggle with the words energy healer.
Why?
Look, it's a good question because I don't have the answer for it. So I think there's a lot of, on a personal level, there's a lot of responsibility into that word healer. And I always have the fear that people might come to me handing me the power to heal them, which is not exactly what I'm there for. I am there to ignite their own power of healing, because we all have it. We might be aware of it, we might not be aware of it, we might tap into it, we might not tap into it. So my job is to allow you to tap into it by offering an experience of balance, so that you have at least a memory to go back to. Because I think that might come easier outside of my room when you're experiencing what you're experiencing, you feel off balance. You remember what balance was, you felt it, your body remembers it. And then you will work your own way to go back to that through technique, tools, coming back to me, more multiple sessions, whichever way works. But that's my goal as a healer. So the term itself, healer, always has, for someone that doesn't know what I do, to put it on the door, I always had a bit of a, funny weight for me.
And so what do you put on the door?
Probably just my name.
Okay.
As a job description now is becoming easier because having my own little space, I'd say, look, I do this, and people get it. But before having my own little space, when I'll say, I do energy healing. Say, what? Who? When you're in those social circumstances, and it's like, okay, yeah, right. And then I kind of, broke it down into, I work in wellness. Okay,
Yes.
I'm a wellness coach. So because that kind of aligns a little bit more with the conversation, I guess, with the average Joe Blood that you might get out there asking you a question about. And then if I have someone that is interested and into it, of course, we're going to go through and explain how I operate and how I work and what they can gain by, coming to a session or having a consultation with me or anything like that. But the idea is to coach people into managing their own wellness and well-being.
Yeah. Okay.
If that makes sense.
Oh, of course, it makes absolute sense to me. And I'm really glad you say this because, in terms of, and we'll talk some more about that, but before I sort of take it to sort of that space, I'm curious about your observations around. So you talked about how back in 2007, you were living, the most perhaps normal, most common human life anywhere in the country, right? And and in the early turn of the century, in the first decade, your soul, you had a contract to find your way into a more holistic, more spiritual, more aligned way of being. But so you were just beginning, to discover what I'm hearing from you, that, there's like a mind connection, or there is something that, there are different parts to you. There are different layers to your existence. It wasn't just, this superficial body and then only just what's outside of you. That, there's depth and layers and different things that go on, right?
Yeah.
Where do you think, here comes the question after that very long explanation, how far do you think we've come along since 2007 collectively in terms of awareness? Whether it be, describing holistic modalities, or whether it be, what's your intuition about that?
It is definitely an interesting question. And, it depends who are you talking to. Because, of course, in the line of work I'm doing, I'm now surrounded by people in the same kind of industry with the same kind of mindset. So if I look at that, I'm like, whoa, wow, now the world is now completely aware. People are, what's happening. But then if I step back and I look from another perspective, I'm like, whoa, no, that's not the case. Progress has been made. And as an example, I can give you the bookstore. I'm a bookworm. I love reading books. So I always been in bookstores. Back in 2007, you go into a bookstore and you look for the alternative row or holistic medicine or spirituality, and probably you add this much. Now you go in any bookstore and you look for that particular row and you have a full shelf of it. So I would say that our awareness has created an industry around it.
Yes, I love that. Our awareness has created an industry. I love that. I'm probably going to pinch it. Just letting you know.
All yours. All yours. All yours.
Love that. Actually, what I'm going to do is I'm going to pop that in the comments so that I don't forget. Oh my God, why isn't this working? Add a destination for your comments. What's that mean? Oh, okay. I know why. Okay, never mind. I'm going to remember. I'm just going to make a note. Yeah, go ahead, please. Sorry, darling.
Add a little thing to that. If I look at life on the planet from a scientific perspective, we are evolving as we speak. And us as human beings are part of this evolution. So we've reached, what we think is the peak of technology, the peak of science, but we're far from the peak of us as human beings. And our evolution goes through our awareness of being more than just the body and the mind. We are literally expanding our awareness into the energy field that we all have around it. And we are starting to feel that. We are starting to feel emotion and sensation that are not coming necessarily from an act in the physical world, but they're coming from a collective energy. They are coming from the energy of the person that is sitting next to you. We are feeling it. We are experiencing it. And it's time now to look into it. Say, oh, what is it about?
I couldn't agree more. So I'm really loving, you have lived a vastly different life to me, seemingly on the surface. But there are so many parallels as to, the journey that you experienced to mine as well, etc. And I have similar observations as well with regards to, like when I talk to you or I talk to other professionals, we can talk jargon, we can talk, energy lingo, until cows come home, right?
Oh, yeah,
but
it's easy.
All I have to do is either walk out my front door, and I live in Redfern in Sydney. Those of you that are from Australia might be familiar with Redfern in Sydney, or I go to family dinner and I'm reminded about where, how the vast majority of the collective is still in that beautiful process of evolution, right?
Yeah.
In terms of not just external evolution, of course, but that internal evolution, that self-awareness aspect of evolution. Yeah. So, but what I want to check in with you is part of the challenge that I have kind of butted my head against is that if I'm, wanting to, I call this podcast, the aim of this podcast is to educate and inspire, but also to empower, right? Evolution and change and awakening. if I'm talking to people within my community, they've heard this 1,000 times before. Not that it's pointless, because it allows beautiful connections and it validates the journey that we are on. But my question to you, sweetheart, is how do we tap in to people? Where do we find those so we can plant some seeds? Where do you find the fertile soil outside of our little cliques, outside of our little groups? How do we do that? And that maybe can then lead us to having that conversation, that discussion more about, that's an extension of my, stats and rants and facts episode from last week. So, I mean, what's your experience on that?
Okay, so on a personal level, I think one of the goals of the work that I do is always to put the concepts that I'm working with in the most simple language possible. Because that person that might need a little bit of extra water for that seed to grow might not be at that level of understanding that I am, because I've done what I've done. So there's not much point of, vomiting jargon, as we were saying, to someone that is like, oh yeah. Because let's face it, one of the challenges our industry has is the fact that it's not credible. There is, from the general public, I'm just being very general here. I'm not, saying anybody listening to this podcast, but from the general public, I feel that level of credibility is always very low. People start to believe that this stuff works when they experience it. But then there is an obstacle in sharing that experience with other people. So there's all sort of, blockages in the flow that is a little bit something that, as, holistic practitioners, we might need to work together to overcome. That was always been my goal, if I talk about crystals, if I talk about consciousness, religion, whatever I'm talking about, I try to keep the language to a very simple level, because I'm not interested to talk to another practitioner that has 20 years experience. That could be a nice conversation over coffee. But in terms of, planting the seed into someone that might need a little bit of help, I need to be able to communicate with this person. Because if this person doesn't understand what I'm talking about, is lost at the very beginning. What we do is not something that has come out since the 60s, when everybody was high as a kite, we got an influx of energy, happy days, make love, not war, etc., etc. What we do, it's thousands of years old. But the way it was done back then was through a level of there was a journey that any healer or practitioner has to undertake in order to become a healer or a practitioner or all of that.
A shaman or some,
There was a personal journey that needs to be undertaken. You can't escape that. Because we can read everything about the chakras, every single books that have been published, and talk about. But if we don't have that experience of that particular energy, ain't gonna go through. Ain't gonna transpire. We're not gonna look authentic. So I guess, yes, now I'm doing what I'm doing, but what I've been doing since 2007 is an inner work of getting to know myself. So what is the reason why I'm a healer? Well, it's very selfish, because I need to know myself in order to be at peace, live a happy life. And once I find those keys that can help me, well, I'm not different from anybody else, so I might be able to share those keys. That's basically what is, making me live in bed in the morning.
Yes. And that's, it's a really interesting, what's the word? I forget the word now. Oh my God, I'm having a mental block. But it's like, in order to find your peace and have everything, you have to initially let go of everything you know. It's
Yeah.
like, right?
Yeah.
So, yeah. And it's terrifying.
It
It's
is absolutely
absolutely
terrifying.
terrifying
Yes. Yeah.
to let go of all, I mean, lifetimes worth of beliefs and, passed on ancestrally and generation to generation, and patterning and coding at a cellular level, and unconscious stuff, and blah 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 blah. I mean, it's so deep.
And that, I think, sorry if I butt in, but that,
No,
I
go
think,
go.
came from my experience in the luxury retail world.
I
started that about 2000 would have been 2006, 2005, in working into that environment. And imagine, a 20-year-old person that goes into that bling world, money, beauty, fashion, art, it's like, wow, this is, that's the end point. That's where I want to go, because I know that once I get there, I'll be so happy. And then, when you try to step up on that ladder, you realize that your happiness is not really coming. So you keep raising the bar. Oh, okay, I don't need 100, I need 200 then. But what was very important was to see the clientele that I was dealing with. That you see them on the outside and you're like, wow, this person must be, because this person has A, B, C, D, F, G, must be so happy. And then they break down like every other human being in front of you because something happened in their life. I'm like, okay, then I need to strip away everything that is not necessary in order to understand what is real.
Yes, strip away everything that's unnecessary, and unnecessary being the clothes, the cars,
whatever
whatever.
thing that your mind is telling you to achieve or to be in order to be happy. Because just the mind talking, and I bless my mind, it keeps me alive. Good job. But there's a time and space for that. It's not my mind that decided to come on this planet and live this life. Mine came after that. So what came first was, let's call it the soul, the spirit, the sacred contract, you name it, depending on what tradition you're looking into, that decided to have this particular experience. For what purpose? Good question. I would never have the answer for it. So I gave up on looking for the answer. But then it's like, well, what if I'm just here to experience? And that's it. And that's it. That's a full goal. That's a full why. I'm here to experience. Why? Well, because I have an awareness of myself. And that's the only way that we can experience, or we can see things from the outside.
Yeah, we are kind of, this is, I mean, we could seriously do, half a dozen podcasts just on this quantum principle of, just, this is an extraordinary conversation, and maybe we will, but not today.
No. We want to keep the audience engaged.
It's a fascinating conversation, and I'm sure that has an audience as well, of course. Otherwise, Joe Dispenza wouldn't have a job.
That's very true.
Right?
Very true.
But so from what I understood and heard that you say, or part of what you say that I want to refer to, is that essentially we need to work together, be seen as a unified force in order for natural, holistic, alternative therapies to be taken seriously. by the broader global collective, or at least to build credibility in some way.
Yes.
Okay.
It is definitely a line of thought that I have. On the other hand, it requires a level of understanding that only by living according to the principle that we work with, you can kind of get. Because otherwise we
What
go
do you
into the
mean?
old, well, otherwise we go into
Explain it.
the old paradigm of, as I was, saying, I'm not going to take a Panadol, I'm taking an amethyst. That is the Western way of approaching health, which is, oh, there's something wrong, I need something that will make me feel better.
Something external, you mean?
Yes, that will make me
Yeah.
feel better.
Mm-hmm.
Or the fact that the energy medicine, let's call it energy medicine, has taken so many different ways and modalities, and that I find it might be a little bit hard to bring it together unless we are going to start having conversation about it.
Mm-hmm.
So the conversation has to be a roundtable discussion with practitioner, and that's why I'm so grateful to be in IEHA, because it is an association that encompasses a lot of different modalities under the umbrella of energy healing. But we had conversation on, okay, how do we framework this? How do we put it in a way that the person that doesn't know anything about anything can maybe understand and might be willing to experience what we do?
Mm-hmm.
But then we are also human beings. And as you were saying in the podcast before, when you ask someone to collaborate, the answer you get is, oh, what's in there for me? And you're like, well, hang on, you're coming from a perspective that is not really aligned with what you're preaching, isn't it?
Mm.
But I'm not blaming that person. I'm saying that's a human behavior, which is understandable. So it is a really complex topic of conversation and trying to unify but we need to start somewhere. And maybe, podcasts like yours are the right platform to do that. And having people engage in this kind of conversation can help.
I hope so. It is part of the conversation that I want to have ongoing. And I absolutely invite that energy of contribution and discussion. I want to flag something. I don't like the word debate, because debate by nature polarizes, because someone has to be right and someone has to be wrong, right? There's a winner. We are transcending that. We are overcoming that mental conditioning, and we are having conversations. Well, I would also, as an extension of that conversation, like to then arrive at some sort of action, because just blah, 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 moving chops is not going to change anything.
No.
Right?
But yeah, I think, that when I was saying we need to change the paradigm, and that's what we're all talking about since years, we need to bring the feminine into it.
Yeah.
And yes, the industry is, 80% women. But that doesn't mean that the feminine is there. And, as you were saying, a debate is we need a winner. And that's a very male mentality. Yes. Because male are this or that. Feminine mentality is this and that. How do I bring these things together?
Yeah.
Not one has to exclude the other. Not one has to be better than the other. But we need to come it together. Because until the last of us is going to be okay, we're not going to be okay.
Can I just share, before I forget, I had a really interesting comment on YouTube as a result of, a person watching the episode, last week's episode, right? And they were saying that a unified approach doesn't work, because invariably it ends up being like a cult where everybody has to act the same and everybody has to have the same message and da, 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 da. And what I was saying that was really interesting, a really interesting perspective, because when I say unified, right, platform that we present in a collaborative way, I don't at all mean that it has to be copy and paste zombie kind of a, at all. In fact, versatility, variety, that's the whole point. To empower people to learn how to choose what's best for them. Right? That's the whole point, right?
Yeah. I think the common ground is the human condition. We're all human and we're all going through the same journey at different levels, with variation, with different themes, different circumstances, but we're all going through. So that should be the base that can build that conversation. And just also, to kind of say, we are not going into the cult way, because in order to get into a cult, you need to be admitted to, and then you cannot leave the cult. My door is open. You can come and go as you please. And I'm assuming yours is open, and everybody, other practitioner that I know out there, has the door open. So it's not a cult-like mentality at all.
At all. Not even close. Yeah.
But the base that we all need to move from is the human condition. Not so much the modalities that we apply to that condition, because they're all so different. They're also variables. And who's to disregard yours modality versus mine is better? That's just, forget about that. But the human condition as what we are, how we're made of, what we're made from, how we're going, that is our common base that we can work with.
Okay.
Because there are millions of traditions around the world, depending where you're born. If you're born in India, you have the Vedic tradition. If you're born in Europe, you probably have a Catholic-based kind of tradition. It depends where you're born. So clearly you cannot unify that. What you can unify is the human conditions, because we are all human beings.
Yep.
What is happiness? What is anxiety? What is jealousy? What is attachment? What is grief? We all experience them.
And so, sorry. Go ahead. Finish.
No,
yeah.
I forgot what I was saying.
Okay. Because I had this inspiration of energy come in, and I just went blur. Yeah, sorry.
It's okay. It happens.
So what I wanted to then touch base on is maybe to validate what you're saying, because here we are, right? I was born and raised in former Yugoslavia. You were born and raised in Italy, and we live completely different lives, right? Not human lives.
Yeah.
And we meet, we haven't even met in person. We've only ever spoken on, via,
internet.
Via the internet. Here in Sydney, and you're in Newcastle, and in Australia, in a country that's like on the other side of the world. And what connects us is the human condition and the journey that we've taken to arrive. Even though it's different, we understand. And now, compassion is a heart-centered attribute. Empathy, joy, peace, inner peace, they're all heart-centered attributes. Those are the things that connect us best to each other. Right?
Yeah. It is that, but they are probably the hardest thing to apply on your day-to-day life.
Yeah.
I always have to pull myself back sometimes. Like, whoa, you're going off a tangent here. Something has been triggered, you're reacting, blah, blah, blah. Just come back to the body, feel your bum on a chair, and then start again. Because compassion, in the industry, we all talk so much about unconditional love. Like, it's something that, oh yeah, look, I found some unconditional love.
Let me get some. Let me get a spray off the shelf.
Look, that might help your vibration to reach that particular status. I'm not disregarding that, but
Of course.
if just the idea of loving yourself, not even somebody else, yourself unconditionally, that is a lifetime work. Not judging, not thinking, not trying to, let alone loving someone else unconditionally. We're all trading love. I'll give you 2 buckets of love. I want 2 buckets back. You know what I mean? I'll do this for you, so you say you love me. That's not unconditional love. That's so far away from it.
Yeah, it's an exchange, a transactional relationship, right?
Life. We've learned that life is transactional since we are very little ones. If you're gonna be good, I'm gonna give you a lolly. That implies that A, I'm not good to start with, and B, I have to do something in order to get a reward.
I'm not enough. Yeah, I got to do something to be better.
Yeah.
Ay, 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 ay.
There you go.
Yeah. Luca, I'm aware that we're already at 47 minutes. Can you believe how quickly this conversation went?
No.
Like just 5 minutes.
Yeah.
It feels like 5 minutes. There's so much more to talk about. But maybe you'll just need to come back again and we'll do a few more of these.
Be a pleasure. I didn't want to say anything to you beforehand, but I had that intuition a couple of days ago. I'm like, what's this more episode coming? I forget about it. It's not my initiative. I'm a guest. But then you're saying the same thing. I'm like, well, you might want to follow that lead eventually. There are conversations that are needed.
Yeah. Because, this might be the initial, what you call the round table, situation. And so then maybe, we go around a couple of times and that creates a bit of a whirlpool and then it starts to ripple out energetically in some way. Yeah.
Because I think a good way to communicate with the people that we might need to plant the seed or help the most, it is bringing them in a situation where they can understand, oh yeah, okay, yes, this is what I'm going through, and this is how you're gonna help me. Where I find sometimes in the industry is the other way around. My technique help with the angel wisdom, which is all great and all, but people, they don't understand how that can benefit, how at their level they can get something out of that particular technique or modality. Well, if we start talking about happiness, joy, stress, love, that people, okay, yes, I know what that is about, and that how energetically you can work with that. That's where we come in. Through sound, color, crystals, meditation, kinesiology, you name it. So they're all different ways of working with energy anyway.
Yeah. I do want to say, though, is one of the things that I really what I also want to do with you, Luca, is to talk some more about how maybe in your experience, what other practitioners might need in order to step up into that more unified energy. Because it's really fractured right now, like really staggered and really kind of, like I'm over here doing my little thing, you're over there doing your little thing, and there's like 1,000 different little businesses, most of them sole traders,
Yeah.
Very few that are actual companies that
Companies.
employ,
Yeah.
people.
Yeah.
I, it's that good old, what's that? Um, I'm thinking of that Japanese book, The War,
The
or
art of war.
The Art of War, and about, you divide in order to conquer,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And it's part of this. And this is, please, I hope you understand, this is not coming from a perspective of us and them, but I do want to acknowledge that there has been this process of, if not actively discrediting natural medicine, certainly a 200 years worth of, this is better because it's scientific and here's the proof and da da da, all of that stuff, which then makes it harder to unify this alternate kind of approach, right?
Yeah.
And
Look,
so, yeah.
I think, and I'm not against Western medicine, allopathic medicine. I think there's a time and space for it. I think it saves life. I think it's important for people to see their GPs and all of that. But it starts from the understanding of you as a being that goes beyond the mechanical reaction in your body. That's one thing. So we leave Western medicine where it is, as going its place in its time. But I think that to unify, I think we all have to go beyond a little bit of fear. Fear of, we are back in the dark ages. Yes, we have reached technological, development, communication throughout the world. But if we think how in the dark ages the church was the power center of everything, and if you would say or do something that was outside of the lines, you would get problems. Let's put it that way, right? Now, unfortunately, the same thing has happened on a social level. That you're not burned at stake anymore, thank God, but you are cast out. And our biggest fear is to feel alone. Our biggest fear is to feel disconnected. And if we are somehow cast out because of, a group of friends is judging us in a particular way, because, the social media platform is blocking us from saying certain things, that's where the fear comes in. So we're not going to speak up. We're not going to, and not necessarily that I embrace any of the theory. I don't particularly, I'm at that level that I don't care anymore. Why we end up in this mess, but we are in a bit of a mess and we need to get out of it. So I think it's coming out of your fear and finding people that you can have a conversation with. That, you and I disagree. When this podcast is finished, we all go our merry way. I don't have to change my lifestyle for you. You don't have to change your lifestyle for me. But we're having a conversation. That, I think, is the start of it all. Coming out of that fear or the fact that, oh no, what I'm doing is enough. But well, not yet. We need to do a little bit more. We need to come together. Only with unity we can find strength.
Yes. Yeah. All right. So let's look at, maybe, we'll organize ourselves and then do another follow-up conversation in relation to this about what that might look like, or what are the reasons, blah, blah, blah. So we can unpack more of this. I think it's a really necessary conversation.
I guess, if you have to send a message, if I have to send a message out there to a person that is listening to this podcast, which is not necessarily in the, holistic medicine paradigm, but it's listening because your feet jump out or doesn't know you. I don't know whatever reason this person is listening for. The invitation is to take a good look inside of themselves and notice how they feel. If they're happy, they're not. They might need some support, and open up to the possibility that that support can come from someone with a funny name on the door. But don't give that person the power to change your life. Because if that practitioner is true to what it does, it will leave the power within yourself. It just that's the invitation I guess I have for someone. And for practitioners also, it's a reminder of the responsibility that we have. Because we're going to get in contact with people probably not at the best in their life. The vulnerability of our clients is our greatest responsibility. We need to be mindful of that.
Okay. Now, I'm just mindful that we want to finish before 1 hour because we'll get cut off.
Yes.
And so, but before we go, let me just bring attention to your name, number one, and also your business name, whynotYou.com. Is that right?
WhynotYou.com.au.
.au. Okay.
Yeah.
So we will, or I will put the links into the comments anyway, so people will have access, and we'll go ahead and share this a few times, throughout the weeks. So you'll be able to catch up and see all the little snippets and all the little really, really, really wise things that were said by you.
Oh, well, by us. It takes two to have a conversation. So.
Well, yeah. So that's, I'm really happy with this first sort of conversation that you and I had, and I look forward to more soon. We'll talk some more and work out schedules and things like that.
We'll work out a plan. But thank you so much for giving me the possibility of having a conversation with you, and with everybody else that is listening, that is interested in listening. And you will have my details. Feel free to contact me for any particular question or any need or any suggestion that you might want to have on there.
Sounds amazing. All right, my loves. On that note, we will we'll say goodbye for now, and we hope you have a beautiful day, a beautiful, restful evening, wherever you are in the world. And we will see you soon. And Luca, don't hang up, just stay here, and I'm just going to finish the recording now.
All righty. Perfect.
Bye, everyone.
Bye, everybody.